Welcome to Don't Quote Me on That. One day we will have an intro, but today is not that day.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm Kalina,
And I'm Eleanor.
and welcome back to Don't Quote Me on That, where we kind of talk about movies. And we are, in fact, talking about a movie today.
We are a musical, I believe. Well, actually, I
We're
know.
not,
I know it
though.
is. I don't know why I'm acting like I don't know what it is.
I know why Eleanor's acting like she doesn't know what it is. Listen, every time I get Eleanor to actually successfully watch something is a miracle. Okay. As we said, it's a musical, so we're talking about the last 5 years. I am a big musical girl. Um, my theory on that is when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of Bollywood movies with my mom. So like to me, breaking into song and dance in the middle of a scene to explain your story just normal, you know?
Wait. Okay. So, to give some context to this, the only thing Kalina told me when she pitched this movie, and by pitch this movie, I mean said, watch this, and I said, okay, was it had Anna Kendrick in it. And then she had a note on our like shared thing that says musicals and Bollywood. And I was very worried that it was going to be an Anna Kendrick Bollywood movie.
Oh my god, that'd be so good.
I don't know
No,
if it would be.
I know my target audience. Eleanor likes Anna Kendrick. Eleanor does not like musicals. So I was like, listen, I know you don't like musicals, but you do like Anna Kendrick. Give it a shot.
I don't think Anna Kendrick could in this climate of that we're living in society could be the star of a Bollywood movie. I just feel like that would
Well, she
cause
doesn't
a
have to be
lot
the
of
star. Listen, I
questions.
never told you she was the star of this movie. She was just in it, okay?
You know
Anna
what?
Kendrick
That's
just
true.
has a 30-second cameo in my Bollywood movie that I'm now making
Your 6 hour
for no
Bollywood movie.
reason. She's there for 30 seconds. Yeah. No, that was my musical and Bollywood theory is because I don't know, like, I think logistically, the kind of person I am, I would hate musicals, but I do like them. I think they're fun.
You know what? I don't hate musicals, but they're not always my favorite. I think this one is done pretty well. It is like an adaptation of a full on Broadway musical. I like Broadway musicals. I've never no, that's not true. I've seen a couple.
Another reason I picked it is because it's not just like a straightforward here's a story. So I think that's I thought like the way the story is told is very interesting. We get two POVs and the timeline kind of flips. So I thought that kind of even if you didn't like the musical aspect of it, I figured that would make it intriguing for you.
You know what? It was. I did mostly like this. I will have some complaints, but that's what we're here for. So,
If you didn't have complaints, I wouldn't be convinced you watched it, I'll be honest.
fair.
So
Yeah, the day
I just
that
think you told me you
I
did.
come on this call and say, "Oh my god, I loved it," is the day you go, "We can record later. It's okay."
You can tell me, it's fine. So basically, the last 5 years is written by Jason Robert Brown. As Eleanor said, it's based on like an actual musical, and it's based on his like actual real life divorce, which is important for later. Okay, I just want everyone to remember that the guy who wrote this musical, it was basically like it was like autobiographical, and he was writing about the divorce he was actively going through. Okay, save that highlight
Oh.
away for later. It stars Anna Kendrick and Jeremy Jordan, and basically we're watching their relationship, but we get Anna Kendrick plays Kathy, and we get the relationship from her point of view, but from the end to the beginning, and we see her first. So we start at the end of the relationship, and then we get Jamie, who's Jeremy Jordan is playing Jamie, her husband. We get to see their relationship, but from the start to the end. So basically, first song we get, as we said, it's a musical. Kathy is singing about the end of their relationship. Next song we get is Jamie, and he's singing about the beginning, and then so on and so forth. Switches back and forth like that throughout.
Yeah, and they don't explain that. You just kind of have to catch on to that. I knew like if between the first and the second song there was a huge shift in like lighting and whatnot. So I knew something was different. but no, I didn't completely understand the timeline was that intentional until I read it on the Wikipedia page.
I always worry about that because before I watched it for the first time, I didn't. I had already known the concept, if that makes sense. So like I had known the concept long before I'd like actually decided to sit down and watch it. So I never it never occurred to me whether like going in it was confusing because I thought it was well done, but I had the background as I said. Um, and yeah, and then there's a little crossover. This was released in 2014. The last 5 years, the musical is from it premiered in 2001 and then it was produced off Broadway in 2002. It's like a fairly big gap, and like there's not huge changes in the script and songs in any way, but like they do make minor changes to make it a little bit more modern or like present, I guess. And then the guy who directed this also directed Freedom Riders, which is a movie I really like. I always forget I like that movie, but that's a really good movie. And he also wrote Disenchanted, which is the Enchanted sequel that I think has come out by now.
All right.
I think those are all my facts.
Thank you.
Oh, it was shot over 3 weeks, which I thought was an interesting little tidbit. The whole filming process, 3 weeks.
I'm asking this for the benefit of our viewers and nobody else. Is that long or short for a movie?
I think that's a short time.
Okay.
Like it's not like a big production movie, so I'm not surprised it didn't take very long. But some movies that you hear like I'm sure Elvis took months to film. Obviously that's an extreme example. That's the first movie that popped in my head. But like that's a big movie. I'm sure that was months and months and months of filming and going to location, da 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 da. But because this is like I guess you'd call it like a slice of life movie or musical.
Yeah.
I do think that it being filmed in such a short period of time works for it.
Yeah. And it was also like the movie, for the most part, was just the two actors. So it's not like we had a lot of schedules that we had to work around for it.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up because in the musical, they are the only two people that you see the entire time, and they never actually interact with each other, which I think is interesting.
Oh.
It's done. They kind of follow that here, but it's a little bit trickier to pull that off, I think, in a movie. So they do have to make some modifications. But yeah, in the musical, they never actually like. Even if they're on the stage at the same time, and there's one song we'll talk about that I'll tell you about the Broadway version, but even if they're on the stage, they don't actually speak to each other. They'll like speak at each other, but the other person is not actually there because technically the other person's at another point in the timeline.
I did notice that there weren't a lot of like speaking roles given to other people, but yeah, it would be a little bizarre if there was literally nobody else in the movie. I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah, it wouldn't translate over well, long story short. Did you have any other thoughts? Any, like, before we get into the first song? It does kind of open right away into the song, but any other?
I don't think so. Just that I was very, very confused for the first, like, I don't know, 2 songs because I was gearing up for Bollywood, and I would like to blame you for that formally.
Listen, we're geniuses and we should do that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so we'll hop right into the first song. So the first song is called Still Hurting. And this is, as I said, Kathy starts off, Anna Kendrick. Kathy starts off and we like pan into her room, into her like apartment, and she's singing about how like Jamie is over and Jamie is gone. Jamie has decided it's time to move on. So like the first words we hear are Jamie, and she looks real depressed. Okay, she does. Not having a good time.
It's very like Twilight, New Moon, Edward Left Me kind of like, even with the lighting and the how they shoot it with like the big kind of, she's just in a chair and the camera's going all around her. I thought Jamie was dead.
That's fair. As I was saying the words, I was like, that doesn't sound great for him. One thing I think they did really well is you hear some like ambient sound in the background, like cars honking and people yelling at each other. So I do think it sets the scene well in terms of like, you're in New York, and then we lose that, and then also it's like Anna Kendrick on one half of the screen and then Jeremy Jordan on the other half of the screen, which is a little bit more obvious, but it also sets the split in the points of view up very well. And then as you go throughout the apartment, at first in the song, you see photos of her and Jamie on their wedding day, but none of the photos are of them together, which is interesting. So it'll be like a singular photo or like frame of Kathy in her wedding dress, and then next to it will be another frame with Jamie in his suit. Same. But like it won't be together. But then as the song progresses, we get photos of them where they're actually in the same photo and in the same frame. But I thought that was a very interesting way to open it up. Is like we're already at the end. They're already apart, but like showing you where they came from and where we're going.
Mm-hmm. I also think Anna Kendrick is really good at looking very sad.
Oh my god, she looks like so miserable.
She looks like she just got stabbed, which is not a complaint because it works.
Mm-hmm. She looks devastated. I think this is a strong song to start out with. I think if you don't know, even if you don't know the premise or anything about it, I think when you hear it, you're like, oh, and you're trying to figure out like what is so devastating. I'm pulling up the lyrics here, so
it's definitely like you know how when you're in 4th grade and you're learning how to write a story, you have to have that hook.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like the first line of your essay has to be just to grab everybody's attention. I think Mr. whoever wrote this, what was his name?
Jason Robert Brown.
Mr. Jason Robert Brown, he took that advice and he excelled.
One thing I want to bring up, because this is a question I will have for you at the end, but it's about basically like, as I said, it's about their relationship falling apart. Obviously, we're at the end of the relationship here, so something went wrong, even if this is the first time you're introduced to the premise. And in the song, because all the context we have is what she's telling us about the relationship, is she says, Jamie's arrived at the end of the line and Jamie's convinced that the problems are mine. And then she says, Jamie is probably feeling just fine. So like, for off the bat, we're getting this picture like it's not her fault that they're not together, and she's very clearly devastated about it. And I want everyone to keep that in mind as we go through the songs about like where the blame lies in their minds versus like actually.
At this stage, I obviously, because we only had from the first song her perspective, I was ready to fight. I was like, that man sucks. Mm-hmm. Can't believe he would do that to you. But I do have complex feelings that we'll get into.
I also like, I'm bringing this up before we go into the next song. It's very like blue, like cool tone. It's very, like I said, she looks miserable. She's wearing these dark colors. The room she's in is not lit up. Everything looks like it's like in blues and grays, essentially, these deep colors. And then we counter that with the next song we go into, which is Jamie singing Shiksa Goddess, I believe is the correct pronunciation, which is right after they meet. And they're like getting it on, okay? And he's singing about how basically he's Jewish and how it's a long song about how he just doesn't want to marry a Jewish girl. He was like, your mother and your brother could sleep with each other, but just the fact that you are not Jewish and not from my synagogue is enough for me to be in love with you. He was like, if you were born a man, that's fine. You're just not Jewish, I'm happy.
Hey, trans rights, okay?
Trans rights.
For a movie from 2014, that is huge.
And I think this song in particular is interesting because it is, again, about the real guy's divorce. And originally he wrote a song, which I don't want to. I'm going off of my memory here, which is questionable at best. But basically, it was a song about being Irish Catholic, I believe. But his ex-wife said that she was like, you're airing out too much of our data. Like, that's too true to our actual lives. And so she sued him over it. So he had to change the song. And then he countersued her, I think, for interfering with his work. But if you're going to write about someone's real life, you gotta, you can't be like, well, the fact that you're upset that I aired out your dirty laundry is interfering with my job. You know what you could do? Anything else?
Yeah, I feel like this song was important in the sense that it kind of set up who Jamie is and like how he was thinking going into it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could just like pick another trait that doesn't that
Mm-hmm.
closely mirror your poor ex-wife who, I'll be honest, based on this movie, you did not treat well. I think she deserves just a little bit of
Some understanding.
privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but I was talking about the colors at the end of Still Hurting. So we jump into Shiksa Goddess, and it's like, it's just these brights and oranges. I think Jamie's wearing like a red shirt or something like that. But it's just, it's very, he's very chatty. And again, in the musical, they never actually speak to each other. But like in the in the movie, it's a little bit different. But Kathy never actually like gets a word in. She just kind of sits there and is like looking at him while he's waxing poetic about how much he loves her and how wonderful it is that she's not Jewish and all this jazz. And so I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
sets the tone for the rest of it.
knowing that like that was sort of a purposeful movie adaptation choice to have her be silent makes it make a little bit more sense. But when I first watched it, I was definitely like, that's it's weird that she's not saying anything. And I think now with all the information that is presented to me, it both makes sense for the story, and also makes sense for her character.
I was gonna say that I think like stylistically it's good, but also yeah, it does present the dynamic in the relationship because again, up to this point, it's only been one song, but like up to this point, we've only heard her half of the relationship, which is Jamie is left and he's fine and she's not happy about it, and now he's like, oh my god, I love you so much. So you're wondering what happened that he adored her so much and now they're not together. Like how did we get from point A to point Z? Quite literally, not even point B.
He's definitely in lust, and he
Mm-hmm.
is very creative with how he
Mm-hmm.
chooses to talk about that. And if you want to move on to the next song slash scene, I am okay because this song was a lot for me to handle.
Well, before I one last thing, if anyone's interested, that guy who's it's not Jeremy Jordan, what's his name? Jordan Fisher. There was two Jordans, I got mixed up. Jordan Fisher, that he was on Disney. I think he was on
Oh,
To All the
no,
Boys I
I know
Loved
who Jordan
Before.
Fisher is.
Love him.
He has some.
He is handsome, and he does a cover of this song. So if you want some like a fun song and just take it out of the context of the movie, you can listen to his cover.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
have
happy
to
to go
go
on to the
there.
next song if you
Oh,
are
I absolutely am.
dying to. The next one is See I'm Smiling. So we're back to Kathy again. Back to the so like a little bit before the like final end of the relationship. And it's Kathy is an actress, which we I think we this is where we first learned Kathy is an actress here. And she's in Ohio doing like summer theater. So she hasn't like made it big. Her going to Ohio becomes like a is a reoccurring thing we learn, and she's not happy about it any of the times. It gets worse every time. But Jamie has come out to see her, and you can tell things have been strained. And this is like, I guess on Jamie's part, this is like a big move where Kathy's like, oh, you do actually care. Like, we are moving in the right direction. Maybe things will be okay. Which, as we know in See I'm Smiling, things will not be okay. And I'll let Eleanor chit chat a little bit before we get to the big reveal at the end of the song, because I think it's done very well.
I fully agree. Um, I have a couple issues with this song. So, like Cleta said, she's in Ohio and he comes out to visit. And for some reason, they are both acting like going from Ohio to New York is like catching a flight to Kyrgyzstan. Okay, they are acting like you have to jump through a billion different hoops. And I'm pretty sure it's like a 3 hour flight at most. And I didn't like that. And also 2 hours. 2 hours from New York to Cleveland, Ohio. Do you know
I
what you can
also
do? You can take, if you timed it right and they offered the flights, you could just go out for a single day.
I think like they're both acting like it's like this hardship, but I think part of that is like they're very different reasons they're acting like that, which I think you become clear as we get to the end of the song. I think on Jamie's part, he's like, this is so like I'm really doing a big thing here, like flying all the way out to Ohio to come see you. And I think on Kathy's part, she's like, Jesus, like you've made me feel like it's a chore to come see me, your wife. So like the fact that you're here is just a miracle of miracles. I'm so happy to have you here. So I do think like in Jamie's case, he probably genuinely believes it's a hardship, whereas in Kathy's case, she's been gaslit into thinking it's a hardship.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, she's singing. And as we said, they don't actually interact. So like we don't hear Jamie's half of the conversation, but you can infer what he's saying based on how Kathy changes. So she goes, I think we could both be better, and like I'll own when I was wrong, and we'll start again this weekend. And then there's a brief pause, and she goes, oh, I didn't know you had to go so soon. So like obviously he's not staying for the weekend. And she's like, I thought we had like more time, but it's fine if you have to go. Like I totally understand. We'll have tonight. And then there's another pause, and then she's like, you know what makes me crazy? Because guess what? He's also not staying tonight. She's like, we could be here.
Oh, this...
Yeah. We're getting to it. She's like, you know what makes me crazy? The fact that we could be here together tonight, and you're gonna choose to spend your night with someone else. And he's like, no, I'm not. But again, we don't hear this. She's like, yes, Jamie, that's exactly what you're doing. And she goes, no, Jamie, you do not have to go to another party with the same 20 jerks you already know. You could stay with your wife on her fucking birthday, and you could, God forbid, even see my show. It's Kathy's birthday, and he can't even stay the night.
It is an apology. He flew out there with the express intent. Well, probably not the express intent because he's awful. But like part of the reason he flew out was to apologize to her. And instead, he's saying, yeah, babe, super crazy. I need to leave. Happy birthday.
And like the fact that again, it's her song, so we're not gonna hear him talk. But the fact that it takes like to the end of the song for us to realize it's her birthday, and she's being like, one, he never said anything about it. Two, the fact that like she was willing to take this like these scraps he's quite literally giving her. She's like, oh, I'm so glad you showed up. Like I'm willing to, like, you know, it's on both of us to do better, but like I can do better if you'll do better. And then at the end, it wasn't even about her birthday. That was just the cherry on top when she realized he was leaving. But at the end, she was like, it's not even that you came for my birthday. It's the fact that you showed up for me in any capacity. But he didn't, because he's awful.
No, he is the worst. Also, I think that, again, obviously a little bit different with the whole context of the movie, but like the difference between Shik's the Goddess, where Kathy like cannot get a word in edgewise. She's not trying to get a word in edgewise, but like if she wanted to, Jeremy kind of would have steamrolled over it. But like in this one, you can see that kind of she's the one who's, even if he wants to talk, she's like, nope, it's my turn. And I think it's a fun juxtaposition.
And then we get to some, if that wasn't devastating enough for you, she goes, I swear to God, I'll never understand how you can stand there straight and tall and see I'm crying and not do anything at all. And then she walks off. Does he go after her? No, because homeboy got a flight to go back to New York. And then you can tell whose side we're on here.
Yeah, and also in this song, we do learn that he was cheating on her, or at least was probably, because she makes a comment about his little girlfriend. And I'm sorry, if my husband cheated on me and then came out on what I thought was a birthday apology trip and then left, they're standing at a river or like on a lake at the song, he would have tripped into the river. Okay, he would have tripped and fell, and I would have been so devastated. I never would have seen it coming. I don't know what happened. He absolutely would have
lost my mind. But then we go back to, and then I think the decision to have, I just thought of this, to have Kathy be the one narrating from the end to the beginning versus Jamie from beginning to end makes a lot of sense, because for Jamie, everything's like wonderful and his life is great. You know what I mean? And I think as we see as the movie goes on, the way they envision their relationship and like the other person's role in their lives are very different. So we go to moving too fast for Jamie, whereas Jamie learns that he gets a call from an agent who wants to publish his book, and it's just this again, it's kind of like Chicks to Goddess, but instead of being about how much he loves her, it's like, oh my god, like, you know, I expect it to be successful, but not so soon, and things are moving too fast. And then he asks, I think this is where he asks Kathy to move in with him, so they move out and they pack up her apartment and they move in together. But like, he's just basically thinking about how he's so wonderful, but didn't think this would happen at 23, I think.
Mm-hmm. This song is also, so let's see, this is the fourth song in the film. Yeah, this is when I learned that Anna Kendrick's character had a name.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until like we started talking about See I'm Smiling, but literally the first thing you hear, the first line is Jamie is over. The first thing you hear in this movie is Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
And like, does he say her name in Chicks to Goddess? He might, but like not a lot. He spends more time waxing poetic about the Shapiros.
Yeah, Jewish girls that he has wined and dined and didn't like. About. Yeah, this is, which I think makes sense for her character to not have a name, which sounds awful, but like, I'm just saying, whoever wrote this hates women.
Who wrote this? I have no idea. Definitely didn't go over that. And then he's like, as I said, he's a writer, and like, here I think it becomes clear in the turn and on Kathy's actress, and like, I think the way their songs are written, the way they perform them, are very reflective that he's very poetic. He like talks about how she's his personal Aphrodite. And like, and as we said in Chicks to Goddess, he just kind of talks and talks and talks and doesn't really give anyone a chance to step in, which makes sense for a writer in the terms that, you know, you got a lot of words. And like, he's like, I left Columbia and I don't regret it. My heart's been stolen, my ego's swollen, and got all this and more before 24, which just on a personal note I'm depressed. But like, and I think this is a very good like quote unquote character study of him, because it's not like, it's like, oh my god, the success is wonderful, but it's not just that. Like, he makes a point to say more than once in this song, like, I expected I would be successful, just not like, again got all this and more before 24. He says, I'm riding hot as a rocket blast, I just expected it 10 years later. So like, he had no doubt in his mind he would succeed,
which is good. It's good to have confidence. Not like this.
Anyone else can have confidence.
And also so the song is called Moving Too Fast, and it's partly about kind of what Kalina was talking about, how his professional life is moving a lot faster than he thought. But then it kind of goes into a little bit of how him and Kathy, their relationship is moving quicker than he imagined too. But the thing with that is, in this song, he asks her to move in with him, and then he's like, this is moving too fast. Just don't ask her to, like, you brought that up. You could just not bring that up. If you think it's too fast to move in, you just don't ask her to move in with you.
Just a suggestion. Also, I just thought of something in terms of the whole Eleanor didn't realize the girl had a name till now. Even when he talks about her, he does very rarely say her name. Whereas like in like See I'm Smiling, again, first thing we hear is Jamie. In what was it? Sorry, in Still Hurting, the first thing we hear is Jamie. And See I'm Smiling, she like repeats his name. She says his name a lot. I can't remember the line, but basically she says his name. Whereas when he talks about her, I think he might say her name once in Chicks to Goddess, but spends a lot of time talking about the other girls. In this song, he says, I met my personal Aphrodite, but like not much else for her actual name. I'm skimming here. I don't see her name in the lyrics here. I just see personal Aphrodite, and that is the only line. Like, he does say, we start to take the next step together, but that's about them, not her specifically. Whereas every song we've heard Kathy sing has had at least like a good chunk of it dedicated to him directly and him, not their relationship, not her, but him specifically.
Which I think makes a lot of sense for their characters, because I think Kathy loves Jamie because she loves Jamie. Jamie likes Kathy and loves what having a wife provides to him.
I think we'll get into this later. Again, I don't think it'll be a surprise, but I'm going to ask Eleanor at the end, like, whose side she's on. And I think, and like when it comes to like flaws and like who was in the wrong and yada yada yada, but I think they both had flaws. You can't be perfect, obviously, but I think one person's flaws were inherently terrible and awful and bad, and the other person's flaws were like, you can't really blame them for what they were doing, which I will explain at the end. But
Also, this is up until this moving too fast, I was very confused as to what timeline we were in. Not like timeline, but time period. Because Kathy kind of dresses like it's 1950. But everybody was talking like it was 2010. So I was just very confused. And it makes sense to know that it's like a 2000s thing that was quote unquote updated. But somebody needs to have her dressed like a normal person.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like, if she was dressing like that just in like Jamie's view of the story, I'd be like, that's just kind of, he pictures her as a housewife or whatever. But like, I don't know if they were going for like a timeless feel or what, you know? Because they had like very obvious references they had to update, so like they could have just not done with those. Or they had done without them, so.
The updating, I think, which is minor as far as, you know, critiques go, but at times it was a little bit confusing.
But that is moving too fast. We go back to Kathy now with a part of that. So like I think this is before things get really volatile. Like I think you can tell things are tense, but it doesn't seem like they have had issues. Like they might have issues in the relationship, but they haven't really like necessarily brought that up with each other, if that makes sense. So we get Kathy singing a part of that, and we see they're at this party, and Jamie is obviously the star of the show because his book has come out, and they're all like praising him, and I think everyone's basically just talking to her, even though we never actually see them talking to her, but like what it's like to be the wife of a famous novelist and like a very successful novelist. And she's like, oh, you know, like it's really nice, and sometimes I see him sitting there writing, he's staring off into space, staring out the window, and then all of a sudden he'll smile and his eyes will light up, and I'm a part of that. And then she keeps talking about how he gets on the train to Jamie Land, or he's off on a trip to Jamie Land, and then he smiles and his eyes light up, and how can I complain? Yes, he's insane, but look what he can do. Which I think that look what he can do is very important for how Kathy reviews the relationship, how she views Jamie. And she keeps like repeating, and by the end it seems almost like she's trying to convince herself. She's like, and I'm a part of that, even though it's very clearly Jamie has a tendency to just kind of exist in his own bubble and then come up with these ideas. But because she's his wife, she's a part of it.
And I do have to make the disclaimer here. No, she's not. Sorry. Not really. I think, like, there's a difference between... Like, obviously, if you're in a relationship and somebody is famous or somebody... It doesn't even have to be famous. Like, there are going to be times where the other person in the relationship needs more attention or, you know, has things going on that require... That are more important than whatever the other person might be going through. That's just how
one person is moving forward in their life and success.
Yeah, I mean, and like, not even that. If, you know, you're in a relationship and your boyfriend just really hates his job and you know, and you really like your job, sometimes you do have to put aside your accolades and whatnot to support him. Or if the boyfriend hates his job, but, you know, you just got a brand new promotion, he's going to go to the little celebration dinner and he's going to put things aside. So, I mean, there's a difference between doing that out of like supporting them through good or bad out of like the love and respect for a relationship and the person. And then there's having one good thing happen professionally and forgetting all about all the other good things you have going on, which I think is what Jamie is doing.
Yeah, and as we learn and see, I'm smiling. Kathy never makes it big, at least not in the context of this and the timeline that we cover in this film. And so she's obviously always supporting him because he's so successful, but doesn't really seem like he's providing support on the back end, at least not from what we've seen so far. And there's one scene in the when like they're at a party and she goes and finds like this empty table to sit down at and is watching him mingle while she's singing, and I'm a part of that. And it's like, it's either she's trying to convince herself or it's so much sadder, and it's like she doesn't really realize that she's not. Like she thinks she is. She thinks he values her as much as she values him, and they're like equals. And so therefore she takes a part in his success. But like how it's filmed, it's very clear that's not the case.
Yeah. This is when I think my idea of who is at fault starts shifting a little bit.
Well, see, I would have to agree with that, right? But then the problem is, we go to the next song, and then it's like, oh my God, all is forgiven, because this is a great song.
Yeah, that was part of my issue because like it's twofold to the like I think it was just a little bit confusing the timeline, but also I think if they put like timestamps on there, it would have been too obvious.
Yeah. And I'm not, but I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about like hopping back and forth from song to song. In this case, I am talking specifically about the song that follows a part of that. It's the best song in the whole show. And when you listen to it, you're like, no, Kathy, you know what, Kathy, I get it. Jamie has done nothing wrong in his life.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This song, I hate to agree with Kalina. I really, truly do. I get it.
The next song is called the Shmuel Song, sung by Jamie. And basically, as we said, Kathy's striking out and keeps ending up in Ohio to do theater. So she's come home after like working like a really terrible shift because she's got to bartend to, because she's not making money any acting. And what's this man's name? Jamie is home, and she comes home and she's depressed, and he's like, "Don't worry, I think it's either Christmas or Christmas Eve." And he's like, "Don't worry, I have a story to tell you. This is my gift." And he comes up with this long story about some tailor named Shmuel in Klimovich who would get up every morning at dawn and so and so and so for 41 years. And then one night, the clock came to life and said, "No, Shmuel, you get to be happy. I give you unlimited time, so you can sew whatever you want because you have all the time in the world." And Shmuel's like, no, like, it's not, this is not my lot in life. Like, I've accepted my fate. I am meant to I sew for work, and I don't have time to have dreams, essentially. And then when he finishes sewing again, the clock's like, no, you have unlimited time. So Shmuel's like, okay, fine. And he sews this beautiful, beautiful dress, and he goes back in time and gives it to this girl. And she marries him. But basically, like, in the story, Kathy is Shmuel, which Kathy was not happy to find that out. because Jamie goes, if Shmuel had been a cute, I'm not going to say this word right. Basically, if he had been like a non-Jewish woman, he would have looked a lot like you. And Kathy's like, wait, I'm Shmuel. I'm not the lady who got the dress. And he's like, yeah. But basically, Jamie's trying to encourage her. He's like, maybe you're just, afraid to go out on a limb, and maybe you're like not convinced you're going to succeed. But I think you're going to succeed. So I bought you like these backstage magazines, which are like, I guess have like audition news in them and stuff. And I got you a new headshot guy, and you're perfect for something on every single page of this magazine. You just have to believe in yourself and take a chance and take your time. And then he ends with the saddest line, I think, besides in See I'm Smiling. He goes, have I mentioned today how lucky I am to be in love with you? And then I'm like, you know what, Kathy, maybe you were onto something with this Jamie.
Maybe, actually, men have never done anything wrong.
Because how can you be mad? And like, I'm not doing the song justice, but like he's improvising. He's like decorating their apartment and he's like dressing her in tinsel, and then he lights up the apartment, all these like little Christmas lights for her while he's singing this song. And it's just like he's like, I believe in you. You just also have to believe in you because you can do it. And have I mentioned today how lucky I am to be in love with you? Oh, my little heart can't take it.
I think the best note from this song that I wrote is he is being goofy and now he is hot.
Listen, I don't know what it is about Jeremy Jordan, but I like him. But him in this song is just heartbreaking to me in the best way possible.
Yeah. And yeah, he unfortunately this song did make me a little bit of a Jamie apologist.
Very briefly. I promise you it doesn't last.
Yeah, absolutely it does not.
I think the movie should just end there, actually.
I fully agree.
Should have started there
But
and ended there and
unfortunately
then
it
called it
doesn't. Yeah, the movie should have just been 3 minutes long.
I do like this in the sense that like we're kind of getting to the part where like there's not so much juxtaposition between the two songs, because at the beginning we've got See I'm Smiling, which is devastating, hop into Moving Too Fast, which is like kind of whiplash between the two, but now we're getting closer to the middle, so like the vibe is getting the same, even though like I still would argue Kathy's is sadder because she's still closer to the end of the relationship. She hasn't like, it's not as close, she hasn't really lost hope, whereas in Jamie's sense they're like settling into, you know, I think they're past the honeymoon phase, but they're kind of settling into a comfortable routine with their
Yeah.
relationship. So it's not like high emotion, but it's not like the end either. So, sorry, I need a big breath of air there. We've got a summer in Ohio. So
Back to Ohio.
in the timeline, if we're going chronologically, technically this is, I guess, probably one of the first times Kathy has been to Ohio since their relationship started. As we know, it becomes a reoccurring thing she's not happy about. But she's in Ohio doing summer theater, and she's singing about how much she misses Jamie, because as we recall from See I'm Smiling, trekking from New York to Ohio is like
Is
climbing Mount Everest.
awful. Yeah.
And like I understand he's successful and
He
has
has
like
his own life.
obligations. Yeah. Because she says that in the other song, but also in the second song, she's like, after a while, right? Like, how many parties do you have to go to with the same set of people? And whereas this is a little earlier on, so I think she's like, okay, well, you know, this is still the first taste of success, so it's still okay. And she says, like, she's being sarcastic, but she's like, I could have a mansion on the hill, or I could live in Seville, but it wouldn't be as nice as a summer in Ohio with a gay midget playing Tevye and Porgy. Or I could be in Paris or take a carriage ride in Central Park, but it wouldn't be as nice as a summer in Ohio where I'm sharing a room with a former stripper and her snake Wayne. And like I do really like how they do this in the movie, because in the show, like I said, they don't talk to each other, but in the movie they do it like she's FaceTiming him. Like, so we like see different like clips throughout the week she's in Ohio and just updating him on his life, and he looks like he's enjoying himself. They look like they're in love and they're having a good time.
They do. This was really cute.
I was gonna say this might be his second best song, which is sad because it's not actually his song and he's not talking in it. But like that's why he's so nice.
He like barely gives a thumbs up on FaceTime, and it is one of his best appearances in the whole thing.
Some of my favorite like little bit in this song is when she goes, I could shove an ice pick in my eye, I could eat some fish from last July, but it wouldn't be as awful as a summer in Ohio without cable, hot water, Vietnamese food. Are you? So like this whole song, she's like, I could be the queen, but like being in Ohio is obviously so much better. But the only time she gets real is she's like, I miss you a lot. Like being in Ohio is worse than not being with you. And then she says, I thought this bit was cute. She goes, I saw your book at Target in Kentucky. And someone, I guess, in the cast was like, I guess all things considered, you don't have to buy the book because he's your husband. And she like smiles at that. She goes, so I smile like Mona Lisa and I lay my visa down. He wants me, her cast member. But he ain't gonna get me. I found my guiding light. I tell the stars each night, look at me, look at him. Son of a bitch, I guess I'm doing something right. Devastating. Because the I found my guiding light, I think, is the simplest way to put how Kathy thinks about Jamie versus how Jamie thinks about her, which is she is not his guiding light. Okay, just spoiler.
No, I don't even think he at some point knows that they're married.
I think Jamie is Jamie's guiding light, and Jamie's also Kathy's guiding light, and that is why you can't sustain a relationship like that.
Nope.
The next 10 minutes is the next song. Now, this is where we get a crossover. And as I said in the Broadway version, this is one of the songs where, like, we have them both on stage, but this time they're actually, like, physically in the same timeline and in the same place, but they don't speak to each other. So we get the next 10 minutes, which first is Jamie singing, and we hear one half of it, the conversation. He goes, no, that one's Jerry Seinfeld. There's a pause. Then he goes, that one's John Lennon there. Pause. No, that's the Dakota. Pause. So, like, she's asking questions and he's responding, but we never hear her. And then I think this song, they switch, not personalities, they switch the dynamic for a moment. Yeah, like how he said Kathy is always the one who's, like, standing by him and adores him, and he, like, she's his guiding light. That was the word we used. He's her guiding light. I think this is, and she's not sure of herself, as we learned in Shmuel. Jamie thinks she needs to be more sure of herself to book more gigs. Here it switches because he goes, will you share your life? He's proposing to her, and he goes, will you share your life with me for the next 10 minutes? For the next 10 minutes, we can handle that. And he's like, if the next 10 minutes go well, then can I ask you again for another 10? So this is the first time we see Jamie not be self-assured and confident. Like, Kathy is the only thing he's never been sure about, but in a good way.
Yeah, which is a good concept. Like, it seems like at this point, like Kalina said, they're both feeling in similar ways. They're both a little bit unsure, but they're both also sure. So they're like, you know what? If we can get through the next 10 minutes, we can get through anything. Which is a cute concept, but unfortunately, Jamie does
As we
get
see.
awful.
And then we get Kathy's half. So we hear the question she's asking and yada, yada, yada. But then we flip them again in the sense that Kathy, who's not sure of herself, at least according to Jamie, and I would argue that Kathy is not as definitely not as confident and doesn't have as much self-confidence as Jamie does. And I will say that probably doesn't help in terms of auditioning. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but, like, that definitely doesn't help, her general outlook. But she says that she's like, I don't know about 10 minutes. Like, I'm not usually on time, and I don't know why people run away, and I don't know why things fall through. I don't know how anybody survives in this life without someone like you. And Jamie's the only thing she's sure about, and she's willing to jump all in because she says, I could say no and goodbye, but why, Jamie, why? And more than 10 minutes, she goes, Jamie, I want to be your wife, and I want to have your kids, and I want to have a long life in your arms. So she's willing to immediately jump past 10 minutes, and she goes, for the next 10 lifetimes, forever, Jamie, for a million summers.
Which, like,
that's so sad.
It is so very nice. Sad. But I think it also kind of points to how she's like, I kind of suck, but also I want you so badly. And in this one, we kind of get an idea of what... I think it's the... we get a kind of an idea of, like, what she's envisioning for their life together. Where, like, she talks about having the wife and the child, and she wants to, like, die in his arms. And I think that's just, they were not on the same page at all, which is devastating.
And I think because the things flip, it's interesting they're not on the same page, because, like I said, Jamie's always like, he's like, when he gets success and when things happen, he's like, I planned this, maybe not so soon, but blah, 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 blah. And here he's like, I don't know if you shouldn't go into a marriage with, like, one foot out, not out the door, but, like, you're not fully in the boat, for example. Okay. Like, you shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have kids, and, like, they don't have kids, or, like, I always say, like, having children, I don't think is something I don't think you should have kids and then realize you really wanted them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the same thing for marriage. I don't think you should be like, well, everyone else gets married, and I think it would be nice, and I like you. Like, I think you need to, like, would want to, like, die, or if you couldn't be married, to be married.
You should definitely put more thought into it than just wanting to have arm candy at your publishing house and then ignoring that arm candy to go sleep with your assistant.
The other arm candy.
Yeah.
But, like, that's essentially what it was. But it's just,
It's
I don't know.
sad.
I think we've said it's sad, but like, and I remember. I think this is one of the first times because Kathy most of her songs at some point says like, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, and I'm like, she's basically saying she's willing to take the blame. Although I think we can see like her blame, if she has any, is not nearly as grand as his, whereas he never seems to think he needs to take any blame, and I think when she's in the next 10 minutes saying, I'm not always on time, and I don't understand why people run away, even though that's kind of how she is as a person. It's the first time she might agree with Jamie in terms of what of her flaws are. But even though it's not her flaws, as we are going to learn in the next song, are not like inherently bad and destroying to a marriage which you agreed to be in.
Yeah, it's accepting that you have things to work on is different than actively making things worse.
Which Jamie is about to do. Because the next song we get
Um,
is A Miracle Would Happen When You Come Home to Me.
I I have one note for this whole song. Um, and what
It's a
our
good note.
friend Jamie says in this song is that it would be a miracle if he wasn't attracted to people other than his wife. It would be a miracle if he woke up one day and didn't want to sleep with every girl he saw. And you know what? You, you don't go blind when you get married, okay? People continue to be cute. And if you are a rich, handsome, and successful man, I'm sure people continue to hit on you. Do you know what's probably easier than devastating your wife by cheating on her? A divorce. Like, sure, that would be devastating in a different way, but like, you don't. If
I just
if
feel like
anybody ever looked me in the eyes and said, "Yeah, it would be a miracle if like if you were the only person I was attracted to, it would be a miracle." I'd be like, "That's kind of rude." If my husband said that to me, I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have a husband anymore.
The FBI would have to come to my house.
it's it's like we say this all the time. Sometimes some thoughts, Jamie, should stay in your brain. And I know, like in the musical, it's not like he's saying these things to her. It is his inner monologue. But like something, Jason Robert Brown, some thoughts should just stay in
Yeah.
your brain, dude.
Also, he
Like,
there's one side where he's talking about how like girls are coming up to him, and he was like, "I don't want to look whipped in front of this this younger, different woman who isn't my wife, which is dumb, and I shouldn't care what she thinks because I can't have sex with her anyway." Um, I'm so sorry that you agreed to get married. Really, truly, feel so bad for you.
it was his idea.
It was your
He
idea.
proposed.
Like,
And then he talks about they come around and they're like, "Oh, can you look at my manuscript?" And he's like, I'm like showing her my left hand and I'm gesticulating with my left hand, and oh there, and like, not to say to his credit, but to his credit, it's not like ever in the song he's like, "Oh man, Kathy sucks." It's just like, Kathy's not as great as all these other girls who want to sleep with me now.
yeah.
Which is just as bad. And then we get Kathy. I think this usually when they have a song, it's like a Jamie song, a Kathy song, and they're separate songs. Whereas the next 10 minutes and then this, A Miracle Would Happen / You When You Come Home to Me. A Miracle Would Happen is Jamie's half, and When You Come Home to Me is Kathy's half, but it's still technically the same song. And Kathy's going on auditions and she's singing. First of all, the song she's auditioning with is saying, "When you come home to me, I'll wear a sweeter smile and hope that for a while you'll stay." And she says, like, "I'll be so proud to call you mine when you finally come home to me." Which is like a little on the nose for her actual life if she's auditioning with this song. And then in like we get that intercut with Jamie being like, "I'm gonna be there, Kathy, I swear. I'm gonna like, I promise, I'm like finishing this chapter and I'll be right there. Don't lose faith." Like, she's like, honestly, if she's gonna lose faith, that's on you, homeboy. That's definitely not on her. But anyway.
Also, you should miss your wife. if
You should miss your
you
wife.
should miss your wife. Kalina and
Even
I
if
aren't
you think
married.
other women are hot.
I miss Kalina all the time. If Kalina was spending her summers in Ohio, which you're doing worse than that at this state, not worse, but like you're further away than Ohio is to New York.
I was gonna say, I was like, I'd argue Ohio is
I
worse, but yeah, I am further away.
I
No offense to anyone from Ohio.
why don't you miss your wife? I miss my dog when I go to the grocery store.
And he's acting like this is perfectly and then in this song he's like surrounded by all these people, and Kathy's like similar to what was it, a part of that where like she's just kind of by herself all the time. Like she's surrounded by these people still, these people who Jamie doesn't want to sleep with, wants to sleep with but isn't happy about it for, I don't know, but it's still like he's still the center of attention. And the whole time he's like, oh my God, my life is so hard. Like, this is so difficult for me.
Like,
Oh boy. Do better.
just don't cheat on your wife. And if you really
I would argue it's easier to not cheat on your wife than it is to cheat on her. I just feel like one of those requires action and one of those requires
just
doing literally nothing.
yeah. And if you want to cheat on your wife that badly, just tell her, and then you won't have a wife to cheat on anymore. Hopefully.
Very easy.
This is
Then
this is when remember how earlier I was like, this is when things started to turn. This is when things turned just
yeah, all
awful.
the Shmuel song love, all the high I was riding off of the Shmuel song is gone by now.
no.
And then we get Climbing Uphill. And as I said, we have Moving Too Fast, which is Kathy auditioning for stuff. And she's singing a song about how she misses her husband so much. And she wants him to come home. And she's going to love him so much when he comes home. So Climbing Uphill is more of her auditioning with this song. But we get intercut with her actual thoughts to the same tune. And she says how she's climbing uphill, Jamie. And she's like, she's waking up every morning to go to these auditions. And like all the girls there are younger and prettier than her. And she's waiting in line for hours and hours. And she's like giving herself these little affirmations. She's like, I'm a good person. I'm an attractive person. I am a talented person. Just grant me grace. And then she sings about how, why did I pick these shoes? And if don't look at my shoes. Don't look. I made up my resume. And if I don't get the call back for this show, then I can go to Crate and Barrel with Mom and buy a couch. She goes, not that I want to spend a day with Mom, but Jamie obviously needs space to write since I'm obviously such a horrible, annoying distraction to him. What's he going to be like when we have kids? Don't have kids with him.
Don't have kids with him. Also, if you think, like, look, thinking that you are annoying or distracting your husband while he is writing, that is bound to happen a few times while you're both getting into the groove of what he needs when he needs to work on his creative stuff and what you need when you need to work on your creative stuff, because I'm sure you have to practice your audition somewhere. It's going to be a roadblock to get through that. If you think that just by existing you are an awful, horrible, annoying distraction to your husband, you need to talk to him. And if he says, yes, you are, you need to not have a husband anymore.
And then at the end, in the movie at least, we see him, he's like doing a reading of his book, and she's like standing in the back of the room watching him, and I think seeing him successful motivates her, which again, he's her guiding light, so that makes sense. But like, I can also see, even if she didn't put him on a pedestal the way she does, if your partner's doing well, or like someone you care about or know well is doing well, you might want to be motivated. Because she goes, I won't be the girl, because the audition doesn't seem like it goes well. It ends and then we see her watching him, and she goes, I won't be the girl stuck at home in the burbs with the baby, the dog, and the garden of herbs, which I don't know why she keeps bringing up kids, because like very clearly you don't want to have.
No. Also,
anyway.
I'm sure they are not doing what you need to do in order to have kids at this stage.
Because Jamie wants to do that with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I won't be the girl who gets asked how it feels to be trotting along at the genius's heels. I will not be the girl who requires a man to get by. So I think, as much as, I don't think Kathy is self-aware, but not in the sense that like she's inflicting misery on people, but I think she thinks, she doesn't realize how much she like idolizes Jamie, because that's what she does. She does trot along at his heels and like kind of is at his beck and call, but doesn't intend to be. whereas Jamie intends to be the center of attention at all
Yeah.
time.
Which, again, sometimes one person is going to need more attention, or they're going to go through things that require the other person to take a step back. If that is what your relationship is 100% of the time, there is something wrong. And also, it's made worse by the fact that your husband sucks.
Speaking of her husband sucking, we get to the next song, which I would argue is the worst song. I like this song. I will like I this is one like this and the Shmuel song I like listen to. I have them on my playlist, but like in terms of emotional damage that Jamie is inflicting, or just anyone is inflicting on anyone in any movie, this is up there with like some of the worst, most devastating things you could say.
This song is awful. This song, why would you, as a man who, you are writing this about what happened in your relationship. You really just...
Yeah, back to the whole self-aware thing. This man wrote this whole musical and not once did he go, and like I am convinced he didn't do this, because if he did this he would have rewritten Jamie to be more sympathetic, because not once did he go, this character who represents me in my real life relationship and my real life divorce
is
kind of
awful.
sucks and is awful.
I also just the song is like, if I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't be doing all these things, which I think on its basis could be a very sweet sentiment. Like if Kathy is down in the dumps about how her auditions are going horribly and all that, and he was like, look, things aren't great right now, but I believe in you and I know you will get to where you want to be, and I would not stick by your side like this if I didn't believe in you. Like, is that by itself good? What this man turns this premise into.
It's supposed to be, it doesn't sound supportive, but it's like I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't think you were as wonderful as I think you are if I didn't think you could do things. And then we get to the end of the song and he starts yelling at her. And one thing he says, which I think has no basis whatsoever, she goes, "If I'm cheering on your side, Kathy, why can't you support mine?" Because the context of the song is she doesn't want to go to another party with him.
Doing for the entire
Party
time
after
you've
party
been together.
After party, watching you flirt with women and talk to people and ignore her, and she's like, it's okay because he's crazy, but he produces such good work and I'm a part of this stuff that he produces, and she's not supporting your side. And then it gets worse because he says, no one can give you courage, no one can thicken your skin. I will not fail so you can be comfortable, Kathy. I will not lose because you can't win. Which, Kathy, never... I can understand if you are in a relationship and you're successful and your partner resents you for that, and you have to say, I'm not going to put my success on hold because you feel like you're not successful. But Kathy has never asked that from him. Kathy is his biggest supporter. Kathy wants him to succeed more than anything. I think her wanting him to support her in her lack of success and to motivate her is not her saying, but you can't also be successful.
No, it's not an easy situation to be in, for sure. Even if you have the strongest, most healthy relationship, if one of you becomes a star overnight, it's bound to cause some rifts and some things that new issues that you'll need to sit down and work through. If either one of the people in the relationship lets that turn into a deep resentment, you just need to call it off. Sometimes major life events happen that irreparably change things. I just want to know what Kathy did in his eyes for him to think that she wants him to fail.
Because I promise you, if the shoe was on the other foot, that is how he would behave.
That is exactly how he would behave.
Because we were talking about in what was it? A Miracle Would Happen. How he's like, and he's complaining about being married because every woman's hot now. But like, you asked her to marry you, and then the very last verse he says, if I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't have stood in front of all of our friends and said, like, I choose this life with you. And then he goes, if I hadn't believed in you, I wouldn't have loved you at all. And then goes, okay, can you put your dress on now and we'll go, Kathy, please?
He looked her in the face and said, actually, you do suck, and for some reason I hate you because you suck, and you know what? I believed in you at one point, and that's why I married you. But now it's like, why am I even here? And then she's like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this. And he's like, what happened? Bitches be crazy. You are crazy.
He's implying her only value is him believing in her, and he's not doing that anymore. And like, how dare she have feelings?
How dare he talk?
On a lighter note, I did see that, like, a little bit of trivia about this movie was I think out of the 14 songs, 11 of them were sung live by Anna Kendrick and Jeremy Jordan in multiple takes due to, like, the camera setup. But If I Didn't Believe in You was like one long shot, one continuous camera shot, and he sang this song 14 times straight through, which I think because of, as we said, it's very emotionally charged, as you can tell based on how we feel about it. But like, I think with the context of the song and the content of the song, for that to be done in one take, I think their reactions are very believable.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like, a real person react like that, because it's not like Kathy. One, she's not really allowed to respond to him in the context of how the show is, as we've talked about.
And honestly, also probably in the context of their relationship.
Yeah, but like, she never like blows up at him or responds to him, but like, we a lot of times the shot is like he's in the background and she's in the foreground, but they can't see each other, so you just see her genuine reaction to these things he's saying to her, and how her heart is very clearly breaking while he's just very blasé. He's like, yeah, if I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't be here right now, and like, you're kind of sucking right now, but like, it's fine. I just need you to put a dress on and come with me to this party. And she's bawling.
And then he's like, what happened? I just...
The next song, I think, is what Kathy should have thought after this song. Because remember, now in Kathy's timeline, we're not at the end of the relationship, whereas with Jamie's we're at the start of the relationship. But the next song is called I Can Do Better Than That. And I think, personally, that's what she should have said to him after he said, if I didn't believe in you. And
I think this, like... So, I Can Do Better Than That is about, basically, Kathy's like... they're in her hometown, and she's doing a little rundown of, like, you know, these people that I went to high school with, this is what they're doing now, and I could never see myself living like that, and I can do so much better than whatever they're doing, and I can get out of this small town. And everybody's heard a pop punk song before, so you know what we're talking about. So I mean, I guess it makes sense for her that, like, all she wanted to do was get out of her town and have, you know, a great life, which is part of the reason she stuck by Jamie for so long, because it could be great with him. I think it has all the, like, on paper, things could be great. And this is when I just get so devastatingly sad for her, because just because it's better in some ways, like, on paper it is better than what you're envisioning, does not mean that it is good.
You also see how her goals change. One, I don't think this song is sad on its own. But coming after a song where her husband is saying to her, if I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't have married you. And then the next thing we hear is how she thought when she met him that he was better than all the other men her friends were with. And, like, to know where she's headed, I think that makes it sad. And then also, she talks about how she had her best friend got pregnant at the end of their last year of high school and married the guy, and the guy's, like, out every night being a heavy metal drummer while her friend is stuck at the house with the baby and, like, a little crucifix on the door. And I can do better than that. And then, as we've heard in the songs before, which are later in their relationship, Kathy sings about how she's like, I want to be your wife and I want to bear your children, and how, you know, in another song, how, like, Jamie thinks I'm such an awful distraction. How's he going to behave when we actually have kids? Whereas just at the beginning of the relationship, she's like, I can do better than popping out a kid and, you know, being stuck at home. And that's what she ends up doing. But she's the worst part is she's been convinced that it's fine, and that's what she should do, and that she's happy about it.
And it's like, Kathy, do better, okay? I know it's his fault because he sucks, but at some point, leave him.
And like I don't know if she should have been if she should have copped on now at this stage of the relationship where she's singing about how I can do better than that, because by the time the end of the relationship, right, because and then as we hear in Still Hurting, the first song, it doesn't sound like it was her decision to break up, which is worse because like how do you go through all of that and not realize he's awful and you need to leave him? I'm sure she wasn't happy in the relationship, but she never still wasn't willing to leave him. He had to do it.
You can only like wait out so many things. You cannot wait out a fundamental flaw in how a person is made up. Like a person can be good and make a multitude of stupid choices and learn from them and get better, and there's a limit to everybody on both sides of the relationship of like where the line is of what is too stupid of a decision to make and what isn't enough to repent for it. You cannot fix deep fundamental flaws with a person. Okay, you cannot fix a person who views his partner's success as a direct threat to him.
And you can't convince anyone to value you. You should not have to convince your husband to do that.
No. Look, sure, maybe you would need to convince your husband that going to Ohio every month or every summer for a couple years is going to be worth your worth it for your career in the long run, because you'll have to think about the logistics of when you're going to see each other and how you're going to, pay for things and all that. Logistically, sure, you might need to do some convincing. You cannot convince somebody who is supposed to love you that they are supposed to love you.
Yeah, like I can understand going to Ohio being tedious, but like he should want to do it because he wants to see you. You shouldn't have to convince him to want to see you. But we have been chit-chatting for a very long time.
This has been going on for so long.
So we're going to go to the last couple songs. I mean, there's not much to say after this because we've kind of
we really
come
have
to our conclusions about the people. We know how the story ends from the beginning. So we've got Nobody Needs to Know. Now, this song, so much fun. Oh, this is such a good song. We love Jamie. The song says, opening lines. Hey kid, good morning. You look like an angel. I don't remember when we fell asleep. We should get up, kid. Now, for anyone who has not seen this show, I'll ask Eleanor. Eleanor, I'd like you to take a guess, okay? Who do you think Jamie is singing to?
Maybe his beautiful, loving wife, Kathy. Is that perhaps?
Oh my God! You know what? I will give you 1 point for thinking logically.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is Jamie, and he's never done that in his life. The next line after "We should get up, kid" is Kathy is waiting. So you know who's not in the bed with him? Kathy.
Is it perhaps their child that he had after fixing their relationship and finally loving his wife? Their kid?
Oh my God. I wish. But then we go into, as the title of the song is, Nobody Needs to Know. And I just feel like I wouldn't have to keep it a hush-hush secret that my kid, crawled in the bed in the middle of the night and fell asleep. And now I'm saying we got to get up.
Is it perhaps an inappropriately young assistant or secretary or editor at his publishing firm?
Ding, ding, ding. That's double jeopardy. You take home the cash prize.
Wow.
And in the song and in the musical, as we said, there's no one else on the stage. So, like, he's singing to someone. In the movie, however, he's singing to multiple people.
Oh.
So he's not just cheating on his wife. He's cheating on his wife with multiple people. And I don't know if that's ever supposed to be implied in the song and, like, the staging of it itself. Because he just says, hey, like, he never uses names. He says, hey, kid, good morning. But in the movie, I think he sleeps with the assistant for his publisher or something like that. And then some other lady who's played by, like, Jeremy Jordan's real-life wife. But like, there's more than one person who's in his bed, and none of them are Kathy.
Also, in this song, um, first of all, your wife needs to know that you're cheating on her. He
Mm-hmm.
talks about how, you know, that he and Kathy are building this life together, and he relates it to a treehouse, and he keeps it from shaking, and he adds more glue to it, and it's perfectly balanced. And then he starts
Oh yeah, he's
making
doing all the work.
he starts making conscious, deliberate mistakes. Um, the you can do something consciously, you can do something deliberately. Those can coexist. A conscious mistake, mistakes are oopsies. You
And you don't do them repeatedly.
If it's a planned oopsie, that's not a mistake. That is a choice, and you need to do better.
Suck. I know I said we've been here for a while, but I was wrong. There's more stuff to say. I think this is very important because I think on its surface, some of Jamie's problems with Kathy are logical, in the sense that he says all that he's talking about the treehouse, and then he says all that I ask for is one little corner, one private room at the back of my heart. I tell her I found one, and she sends out battalions to claim it and blow it apart. And I understand the sense of, when you are in a relationship, you can't be you can't do everything you can't become one person.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be your own entity. You can't you shouldn't have to, I mean, you might want to, but you shouldn't have to share every single thought and feeling, and like and express every single thing that goes on in your mind. Everyone needs privacy in their lives. And not even like I'm trying to hide this from you, but everyone needs to be able to be alone in some way, even if it's not physically. And so I can understand, on its surface, if he feels like she's smut, like she just wants to inhabit him, and he's like, I'm just asking for just a little bit of space every once in a while, and she wants to take that over. But the thing is, it's very clear Kathy, throughout the show, it's very clear Kathy hasn't done that. Kathy sits in the corner, and she watches him, and she lets him be, and she lets him be successful and bright and a star and the light of her life, and doesn't ask for more than that. And he's upset because she wants him to love her, and like, maybe she wouldn't have to ask for you to love her if you weren't awful and cheating on her.
Yeah,
Just a suggestion.
just
And then I will say, Jason Robert Brown is very good at like writing these sad songs, and then just when you don't think it can get any worse, he like hits you with these, because every time I've said this, like the last lines are awful. He says, the whole premise of the song is he's singing to the person he's cheating on Kathy with, and he goes, nobody needs to know. And then he says, and since I have to be in love with someone, since I need to be in love with someone, maybe I could be in love with someone like you, which is a nice sentiment. But the person you should be in love with is your wife.
and also you don't need to be. This is like another thing where, like, I think the time period was a little bit confusing for me, because I think in 2015 authors don't need a wife to stand by them. They can just be a
Mm-hmm.
successful artist or author and be alone, because no offense to authors, um you're not Beyonce. um but like, I think it's more like, personally, he just needs somebody there to love him, but not too much.
And tell
But
him he's great
be
and
obsessed with
wonderful,
him,
and
but
yeah.
not like that. Um, oh my god,
And
dude.
not ask for any of that in return. And then also those last lines, and it relates to Shiksa Goddess, because he's at the end of Shiksa Goddess, he says, I think I could be in love with someone like you. And then he goes, since I have to be in love with someone, which
No, you
just
don't.
objectively in your life, in a relationship or not, you don't have to be in love with anyone. But I would argue, if you are married to someone, if you had to be in love with anybody in that scenario,
Do your best to have it be your
maybe be
wife.
their spouse.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
I just, like, I could understand him feeling suffocated like you said, I don't really think that's what Kathy is doing. But I could see how, just even in the last song we saw that like all she wanted was to get out, and Jamie is the one who kind of made that happen in a way. So I could see that being suffocating at times. But like practically, that's not what she's doing. And if you really truly think that that's what she's doing, you need to sit down and just tell your wife you hate her, and hopefully she will leave you. And if she doesn't leave you, just break up with her.
If she, honestly, if she doesn't leave you at that point, that's on her, and we can't help her anymore. But it's not like you ever took any steps
Yeah.
for her to. I think by the time he was doing things for her to realize maybe he's awful, she was like a little too far gone in it
Mm-hmm.
to process that was she kept putting it on herself. Like I said, that was a common theme. She kept saying, like, she's like, I'm willing to take blame too, even though realistically she wasn't
She
doing
didn't
anything she needed to take
do
blame
all that
for.
much wrong. I mean, sure, she was a
But
little bit
anyway.
annoying and liked Ohio, but like she didn't she didn't cheat
And,
on
and
you.
she didn't even like Ohio. She was like, haha, I sure would, being the British queen would definitely be worse than being in Ohio. But I love acting and I love you. But you know which one she liked more? And she said repeatedly,
You.
you. You know what? I don't think he said once
That
that
he
he
like
liked her better than anything ever. That he liked her, really.
Yeah,
But, like,
he maybe could
I think Shiksa Goddess, maybe he was like, but even then, it wasn't like, I like you for you. It's like, I like you because you're not Jewish.
yeah.
Thank you, God.
And cuz you're under me right now. Let's go. Come on.
And then we get a nice little. I do think this is a good ending to a song. I think a lot of this. We've used the word devastating a lot, but like when you read the words, it is, especially when you're thinking of the timeline, and like back to back how Jamie treats her versus how Kathy views him. But I think this like ends on a lighter note with still being keeping the sad tone of the show. So this is Goodbye Until Tomorrow slash I Could Never Rescue You. So it's the third time and the last time we get the two of them singing at the same time and like quote unquote interacting with each other. And so it's Kathy at the very start of the relationship. So I think this would be around Shiksa Goddess, probably just before. Or just after, sorry, just after,
Mhm.
because he's leaving. She goes, "Don't kiss me goodbye again. Leave this night clean." Basically, she's like, "If you keep kissing me, I'm gonna keep you here forever." So like, goodbye until tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll watch you go, and how wonderful. And I have been waiting. I have been waiting for you. And now he's at the end of the relationship. So this is just before Still Hurting. And he's saying how he called Elise to help him pack his bags, and he closed his bank account, and it's not about a shrink, and it's not about another compromise. So here we learn they have been trying to fix their relationship in more traditional ways. I'm not the only one who's hurting here, which, to be fair, I don't see how you get to hurt at all. But anyway,
Mm.
you never saw how far the crack had opened. You never knew I had run out of rope, and I could never rescue you. All I could do was love you hard and let you go,
You
which
didn't
I have
love
mixed
her.
feelings about. Because, but like, if you watch Shmuel's song, I would argue he loved her, but I don't think he loved Kathy in the sense of who Kathy was as a person. I think he loved Kathy in the sense of who he built Kathy up to be
Mhm.
in his head.
Yep.
And this whole time she's singing, goodbye until, and like it kind of is reminiscent of the next 10 minutes also, where he's like, will you share your life with me for the next 10 minutes and then 10 minutes more? And she's like, just goodbye until tomorrow, and then I'll see you again, and goodbye until tomorrow until I see you again. I'll be waiting until I get to see you again. And he's over here like, I didn't see a way we both could win. Yeah, because you only ever thought about you winning. To you, Kathy winning was like direct opposition to you winning, which was not the case. And then the song ends. He's talking about, and he leaves the apartment, and then he walks out of the frame, and then we see Kathy walk into the frame, go into the apartment, and then read the note we see her reading at the start of Still Hurting. So if you put the movie back to back, it would loop right back into Still Hurting, because you see her reading this note, and then she starts singing about how Jamie has said everything is over and it's up to him. And then they say goodbye, and then I'm sad. Well, I've been sad for a while. But
Yeah, I've been sad for a while. I just I I feel so sad for Kathy that he had to leave her to end this.
Yeah, it never. I don't know. Like that's one of the worst parts. Is even through all he put her through, he still had the power in the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been here for
We've
so
been here for
long.
so long.
If you want us to listen to another movie musical, we definitely will. We'll try and keep it shorter. Sometimes I make Eleanor listen to songs from a musical, just a couple of them, and have her guess the plot. So if you want us to do one of those instead, comment down below. Let us know.
Yes. Check us out on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. And thank you for sticking through this. And my dogs are barking, and I think everybody can hear that. So now is a great time to say goodbye and thank you.
Bye. See you next week. Thanks for listening. Don't quote me on that. One day we'll have an outro, but it's not today.